I think small businesses, the biggest challenge that they have is reaching their audience.
So hi everyone, welcome to our interview series. And today we are going to talk with Tom Fanelli, founder and CEO of Convesio. Tom and I had worked together in the past a few years from RealPage, and we have known each other for a few years. But in this interview, we're going to talk about like how the current crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, is affecting the economy. How is it affecting SMBs, and what you, Tom, has seen that SMBs are doing in order to keep afloat and stay competitive. So Tom, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and your background so the audience can get familiarized with yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Vishal, and it's great to be together with you again. So as you had mentioned, Vishal and I had worked together. I moved to the Bay Area about 11 years ago now, and the company that I came out here to work with was a software company in the real estate space, and we had sold that company to a large cloud enterprise company in property management called RealPage, and that's where Vishal and I had met. And we spent a bunch of years working together, and I'm excited to be here with you. But I sort of describe myself as my DNA is at the intersection of technology, marketing, and software. And so my career has been really in technical marketing teams or product teams. And so I've built a lot of marketing services and marketing software, and it's usually in the B2B space, but it does reach to B2C at times. And today what I'm doing is I'm working on a new startup that called Convesio. And so we're a new entrant into the WordPress managed hosting space. And so we provide highly scalable, secure hosting of WordPress sites for agencies and enterprises. And I think one of the things that is interesting is I get to deal with a lot of different businesses globally. So we have data centers in Australia and the UK and EU and the US. And so I've got a really interesting view, I think, of the state of the coronavirus pandemic and how it's been affecting people in various parts of the world and over various types of businesses, from restaurants to enterprises.
Nice. That's awesome. I was reading an article this morning on McKinsey, and they talks about how to restart national economies during coronavirus crisis. And one of the things they talk about, that the lives and livelihoods will fully restore only when enough people are immune to the disease to blunt transmission, which means there's still going to be time until the business is back to normal. So in your expertise, how have you seen, what are challenges have you seen the businesses are facing these days? Because there is no end, that they don't know when this thing is going to end. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And what are your things you are seeing with the SMBs and other businesses?
Yeah. Well, I think that the biggest challenge people have, especially those who, I think there's challenges, and I won't go into this too much, but there's challenges adapting your workforce to remote, okay? Now, I actually think those challenges are harder in enterprises, believe it or not, because if you're a small business, it's easy if you have something that is a product or service that doesn't need to happen with in-person transactions. It's easier to transition your workforce, but I'll give you an example. I have friends of mine that work at very large enterprise companies, and they can't get enough laptops for their 5,000 employees because it's being diverted to medical, doctors, hospitals. And so there are issues where very large enterprises that have been traditionally in-office, on-site teams have a lot of trouble making a quick pivot to remote. But aside from the whole remote working thing, I think small businesses, the biggest challenge that they have is reaching their audience. And I'll give you a couple examples of this, right? If you are a buddy of mine runs a karate studio, right? And so obviously you can't have 50 kids coming in for karate class. So you've got to figure out, how can I still provide my service or product so I don't just close up shop, And so what he's doing, interestingly, is he's actually doing Zoom classes. And it's great because he's posting on his social media, which is another great way to reach people. He's posting on his social media that, he's got these, dozens of kids in this Zoom call dialed in. And, it's him by himself doing his karate class to all these kids virtually. And that is brilliant because there are amazing opportunities when you do that. You have a much further reach of your product or service versus traditionally where people would have to drive to your karate studio. Now you can do online classes. Right. And so I think there's some benefits coming out of this, but the transition of, being innovative and having the wherewithal to figure out for your business how you're going to reach people. I'll give you another example. I know a lot of businesses are doing things where they're trying to reach people, fitness instructors are trying to do one-on-one classes on Facebook, right? Or using Facebook Live. That's something that I've seen people start to do. And so restaurants are offering delivery services and they're marketing their services through social media to let people know we're still open. Standing up online ordering systems for their menu and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And, an interesting thing I've heard, and it's not so much nowadays as it was 10 years ago, but the people that have a much higher or significant challenge to this are the ones who've never invested in building an online following, right? If you've got a following of people on social media for your restaurant, as an example, and you never did online ordering before, you have a channel where to at least reach those people and let them know we're still here, we're still available, here's a new ordering system for you. If you've never connected with those people, then you have an even higher challenge because you almost have to build your audience and figure out a new channel to reach them.
Yeah, I know that's very interesting. And this is where, all the companies who have spent time, like you said, building their online audience, this is a great way to utilize them. And have you ever seen, like you meant, that's a really great example of your friend who's doing karate classes. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of these individuals or businesses have never done like live videos or Facebook lives. And so what is the best practice for them to get started? Because there's always a hurdle, right? Like when I started my YouTube channel, creating my first video, it took me 8 hours to create 5-minute videos.
That's right. Yeah.
You make mistakes and you're like, what are people going to think? So what do you think that if somebody has never done any live video and never done any YouTube video, what is the best way for them to get over this hurdle?
Yeah. So I follow this guy on LinkedIn who's always motivating and encouraging people to get out there and get your message out. And his advice was, you've got to do it 20 days in a row, I think is what it was. And you will get totally used to having your voice, hearing your voice and seeing yourself and all that kind of stuff. And, I'm by nature kind of an introverted individual. And I've been slow to make my face be known on social media. And I've just started doing it because I'm kind of the face of our company. And so I would say you've got to just get over your initial fear, start recording some stuff. By the way, you don't even have to publish it. I think there's two fears here to this. One is like getting up the nerve to actually record and say something and figure out your message. Then the next is, now that you've done it, getting it to the place where you're ready to hit that publish button. You can record messages all day long and look at yourself and assess how you're doing and coach yourself and, give yourself feedback, like watch yourself. And so I think just start there, start recording some messages and then work on getting to up the nerve of actually going on YouTube and publishing it and then sharing it to people on social media. I will say that having now crossed the chasm where I've actually am now comfortable doing this, it was a lot easier than I thought. People were more gracious than I thought they would be. Everyone's afraid you're going to get trolled and, all this kind of stuff. And so I try to keep it simple, and it's actually been really encouraging for me and positive to use online media. And so I would say just do it. You got to just do it. 20 days, commit to it.
Like, are you doing more for your company as well?
Yeah, I'm doing more for my company, and I'm also doing more personally. I had a friend of mine that has a great product called Content Creator Planner, and she sent me a copy of it, and it's a social media scheduling book, and it was really awesome. And so I recorded a very quick video of that, and she loved it, and it was fun to do. And so that was kind of a personal thing that I did. And so I'm enjoying communicating with people via video more. And you just kind of have to get over the insecurities that you have and do it. And you'll be so happy you did, because the benefits of doing it and using this far outweigh all the insecurities you might have.
So when somebody is starting out, so let's say we'll take the karate example. A lot of time people get blocked that, okay, I can do a karate class, but then that will only be maybe one class a week or 2 classes a week. But if I'm engaging with my audience, like, how do I engage? Like, what does engagement even mean? Like, what do I talk to them? So what do you think would be a great way for people like that who are just on the first hump to get over it?
Yeah, well, I think this is part of the challenge, right? Of, think about things like a restaurant. You're not usually, like karate class, that example is relatively easy because it's instructional, okay?
Right.
And we can all understand how you can use a medium like Zoom or YouTube to do instructional communication. I think it's more challenging when you're like, I've got a restaurant, okay? And I can't serve people online, but a great idea I gave to a friend of mine who's got a very awesome French restaurant in Florida. I said, look, sell a wine tasting kit, okay? And then do a Zoom wine tasting with everyone who buys it. So the idea is, you bundle together 3 bottles of wine and some appetizers. You have people come and pick these up. And then you have a scheduled time where you're all going to sit down and you're going to do a wine tasting on a Zoom call. And that sells product, but it also gives you a social outlet by talking to people and tasting wine together on a Zoom call. I think those are the innovative things we have to think about. How do we shift what we're doing? Because people are starving, trapped at home, for social interaction. Another company I work with is in the travel space, and they own a resort on a tropical island. And, one of the suggestions that I gave to them was people want an escape. If there's a way that you can give people a window into this tropical paradise so they can escape the confines of their home, and you could do like video sharing, streaming video, all of that is ways for people to interact with your brand without actually you maybe selling or delivering the product or service you're used to selling or delivering. And so you have to find adjacent ways to keep your fan base or your customers engaged. And you do have to think outside the box.
I think that's a really great example. Like, it made me think about Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, if you look at his older videos, that's literally how he started. Like, he was doing sitting on a table, grabbing a bottle of wine and just talking about it. That's and all of a sudden people start connecting with him, and then his wine business exploded. And this is a great example for restaurants that you can actually do product sales, and then you get to engage with your customers.
That's right.
And there was another example you were talking about with your local church, that they're using a social platform to be more innovative and connect with the people in the community.
Yeah, that's right. I think another benefit of this whole pandemic is the fact that the world at large is getting much more comfortable with doing Zoom calls with people. For instance, at my church, all of our small groups, our weekly Bible studies, which are usually held inside people's homes, and you typically have been meeting with these groups for years potentially, and so these people very well. They've all gone to Zoom now. And the first few of them were rough, like people weren't sure where to put the phones and the mics and the videos and all that. And so now it's like second nature though. And what's interesting is people are really starting to learn. The technology sort of fades to the background. It used to be that the technology was a bit of a distraction, but now the technology, everyone's getting so comfortable with it, it's fading to the background, and you're actually able to connect with people. And that's, I think, where the magic of video conferencing really starts to become powerful. At first, the technology is sort of a hindrance because you're used to being in person, and then eventually the technology becomes completely transparent and it feels like you're still connecting with people.
No, that's a great example. And I'm going to piggyback on that. You talked about engaging for small businesses to engage on social with their audiences. So there was an article in Wall Street Journal that talks about unprecedented spending pullback from bigger companies. So they are not spending that much money on advertisements anymore because they're being more cautious. So there could be like a pro and a con in a way. So if bigger companies are not spending, do you think that would lead to the lowering of the pricing for like Facebook ads or Google ads or working with influencers? And does this represent an opportunity for SMBs or small businesses to be able to, so they're doing video chats, like they're doing, like the karate classes, and they could give them that they're able to get more click through or more engagement, especially if somebody who's not even built a social audience, but if they want to start it, so they might be able to do it at a lower pricing. Do you think that could be the reason, could be one of the benefits of ad spending being reduced by bigger companies?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's probably two important things to recognize about this, right? The businesses that were advertising on the local level who have not figured out how to deliver a product or service, like the restaurants who just shutter themselves, right? Or the karate studios who just decide we're going to close up shop, right? That leaves an opportunity for those who have figured out how to deliver their service during this time, right? And so those people should be jumping on that, because there will likely be a vacuum in the space of maybe not even marketing, but people who can actually who can actually deliver the service, right? Like if you've got 100 karate studios and you have all those people, and now all of a sudden only 20 of them have taken it online. Well, the rest of those students that were going to that 100 still need a school. And so that you might get new customers. The other thing that I would say about this is, yes, I do think there's opportunity. We are seeing, at the last that I heard, there was a 30% reduction in Facebook cost per clicks, is I think the data that I had heard. Right. I think that we're starting to see, I was just on a call 2 days ago with the company Segment, which is a software company, did a marketing call and a COVID-19 sort of state of marketing. And they had a panel of people, and they had some very interesting data they charted out on this, where they said they're starting to see a bit of a recovery on this. But I do think there's still opportunity, but I think you have to beware of the fact that some things are going to have delayed purchase decisions. I think a lot of people have time to research things, right? But, and so like, let's say you're planning a vacation. You might have a lot of time on your hands to research and look, but you're probably not going to buy right now. And so I think that you do have this potential of, while you might use this time to increase your top of funnel and get more people in, you also need to be cognizant of the fact of your cash flow, because you might have a much longer buying cycle or closing cycle than you normally do. And so that's something to be aware of. And that varies industry by industry, but I think there's a lot of people spending time researching online purchase decisions that might be potentially delayed.
Oh, that's an excellent point. And that also brings to another thing, that maybe this is a great time for businesses to double down on content creation. That how can they create value? Because like you said, people are spending far more time on their iPads, on their phones, just researching, sitting at home when they don't have anything else to do. So what would be your top 2 to 3 content creation recommendations for businesses that they can double down on, do, and what frequency they should do on as they start building their audiences as well?
Sure. And I think this is a great point. And, we deal with a lot of agencies, and what I hear is the agencies who are really busy right now, they have a lot of their clients who are saying, you know what, we might not be able to do the direct digital media, AdWords, Facebook, spends to get people in the door and close them that we normally do, but we're going to spend this time working on either the strategic or the tactical things that we need, so that when we come out of this pandemic, we've got we have bandwidth now to do the stuff that we never had bandwidth to do before.
Right.
And so what that means, I think, is a great example is doing what we're doing. Okay. If you want to get case studies from customers, they're at home, you're at home, schedule a time, do an interview, and now you've got a customer testimonial that you've just recorded.
Right.
And that's a great opportunity. And I think as people are getting more comfortable with Zoom calls and with teleconferencing and video like this, they're going to be more open to doing those things. I would say video content creation is probably one of the biggest things that you could do now, because I think people are so eager to consume this type of interaction versus like sitting down and reading an article. I do think working on organic SEO and content creation is really, really good, but now is the time to sort of get into the video world of things. And so I think doing customer testimonials like this, doing, sessions with partners where if your company has a partner product or something and they can do an educational webinar for you, recording that and doing an interview like that, you don't have to necessarily create all the content yourself. If you've got partners or, vendors or technical people in your organization that you can just do a quick interview like this on, that you can post up and it becomes a great piece of content for educational purposes on your YouTube channel.
No, that's good. So that actually brings two questions in my mind. So first would be, so now if I'm an SMB, I might be thinking, okay, that's great, let me go create content. But then all of a sudden, if I'm creating content, I'm sure there are thousands of other people creating the similar content. So what can I do to separate my content, differ from somebody who's probably in the same business as I am, because they have the same amount of time as I do, that they're probably getting the similar advice. Like, what can companies think about, like, what can they do to differentiate themselves, even if they're competing with, like, because right now there are two type of competitions. One, businesses are probably competing with somebody who's in the same business as they are. Mm-hmm. And the second one, they're competing for the consumer's time frame, because the consumer might be watching a funny video on YouTube versus why would they want to watch your educational content. So what do you think, how as companies can think about creating a unique value proposition or separating themselves out of the bunch so they actually get more views and they actually can promote their business?
Yeah, I mean, this is really a big question in the sense of, if you think about your unique selling proposition, right? I always try to get people to sort of really think in terms of, all right, what is the thing that makes you different from your competition, right? The guy I was telling you that was the restaurant owner in Florida, that's a friend of mine. He is a classically trained chef. He was born in France. He's, moved to the United States, became a citizen. He's got an immense knowledge of wine, okay? Immense knowledge of wine. And so that's why I suggested to him, one of the things that he could do that few other people could do is really put on an amazing wine tasting, okay? And so I think that you have to think about the things that make you different from your competitors and articulate those things. This might sound a little bit mundane, but an example of this is a buddy of mine owns a painting company here locally. And he is just the highest quality painter, okay? Mm-hmm. And when he was quoting me years ago to paint my house, he went through and he said, here's what we do and here's what other people do. And I love this notion of contrasting, right? Mm-hmm. And nowhere, like I told him, I said, you've got to get that on your website somewhere, because, like a comparison list, right? Of here's what all the rest of the people do, and here's how we do it differently, and here's where people cut corners. Mm-hmm. So you've got to know that message for your business. But more importantly, as a founder or an owner or, an executive in a company, you may know that, but it's not articulated anywhere. And so it doesn't do any good to the masses for you to know your own differentiator and not share it. And so I would say, hone in on what really makes you different from your competition and start to, get that message out. And that could be an easy interview. Like, I like the other idea of like finding people to interview you. You know, if I want to tell you what's really different about Convesio, I'd call you up, Vishal, and I'd be like, Vishal, ask me these questions and let me explain them to people.
Right.
And that's a very quick and easy thing to do.
Right. Actually, that's a really good point. And like touching back on you when you said, how to figure out your unique value proposition, that something just came into mind is just even asking your customers who have actually bought from you, like, why did you buy from me versus buying from company B?
Yeah.
Because from their mind, they might be able to give you a better view of your unique value proposition that you probably as a business never even thought of because you're just too close to it. So even getting those little snippets, like you said, that can be even go on your website as a content, can be a comparison chart, can be part of the video that you are sharing. So I really like this. I think this is really good.
And I would say one of the things to remember if you're going to interview your customers, now this isn't for everybody, right? Because this is for more of like the B2B probably space or the services space. You know, I love this question or framing interviews like, what was life like before you had Convesio as an example?
Right.
And oh man, life was hectic and we were stressed out and we had no time and it cost us a lot of money. All of those things that were bad, right? And then tell us what life's like after you got Convesio. And oh man, it's been great. We've got all this time back and we're more profitable and all these pros and cons. That contrasting between what life was like before your product and what life was like after your product is a really good way that we tend to use when we talk to our customers to get them to explain and contrast the difference of using us versus using a competitor.
Right. No, that's excellent point. Like, and even in YouTube, I have seen even the thumbnails that have before and after images of any product or any type of like how-to videos, they have the maximum number of click-throughs because people can see what is before and after situation.
That's right.
And what this product is going to help me make that transition between those two. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. No, this is great, Tom. So before we wrap up, like any last words of advice for our audience? And if they want to reach you and learn more about the company, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to Convesio. You can email me at tom.fanelli@convesio.com. I'm sure we'll put it in the notes of the video. Right. I mean, the one thing I would tell people right now is to stay positive and not get bummed out. It's really easy to get wrapped up in the news cycle and the potential, who knows when this is going to end and when things are going to return back to normal. There is opportunity out there right now, okay? There is an opportunity for, I think, all businesses, and so my advice to people during this time is stay positive, don't get too bogged down in the negative, and look for the opportunities. This is going to be a profound changing of both business and society in many ways. And I think that I tell my kids the awareness of just washing your hands more is going to make you healthier. But never have we been so focused on washing our hands or the impact of shaking people's hands and then touching our face or something like that. So there's a lot of aspects of society and business that are going to be changed with this whole pandemic. And I think the people that are going to come out on top are the ones that are going to look through the positive and see the opportunities and sort of capitalize on the changing trends that are going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Tom, thank you so much for your time. And I hope everything stays safe and good luck to you and the Convesio team. And I'll reach out to you soon.
Thanks, Vishal. Likewise. Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.